all know that China has one of the worst governments in the world, right? You know that, don't you? Yeah, I'm just checking. So here are a few words that come into my mind when I'm thinking about the Chinese Communist Party. And trust me, I think about them quite a lot. So oppressive, despotic, authoritarian, evil, and tyrannical. You get the point. So this is a government that doesn't allow any freedom of speech or any form of dissent. I mean, which country, apart from China, hires a bunch of trolls that go online and attack anybody that criticizes their government? The thin-skinned government in China really doesn't like criticism, and every time I put out a new video, I get hate comments from the Wu Mao or Little Pinks or whatever the hell you want to call them, threatening me with all kinds of horrible things. It's awful, seriously. So say what you want about the country where you live and their government. Unless you live in North Korea, obviously. But at least your country's government are not so insecure that they'll target, harass you, or even lock you up just for having a different political opinion. It's crazy. They can lock you up on a whim and arbitrarily detain you if they feel like it, and they've done this before and they can do it again because the government there, they just make up the rules. When I lived in China, I noticed that the people there don't really follow the basic rules, and to be honest with you, it's pretty chaotic there. If you want to, you could get away with so many things in China and you'd be perfectly fine. Just go there for yourself and you'll see how crazy and lawless the place can seem. And maybe that's part of the appeal of living there for some people. But there's one thing that you can't get away with in China if you live there or if you're just there to travel, and that is criticizing the government. Do that and you're fucked. So when you compare China's government to Taiwan's, it's like night and day, apples and oranges. They couldn't be any different. Taiwan's government offers its citizens political rights, civil liberties, freedom of expression and belief, personal autonomy, individual rights, wonderful healthcare, and a whole lot more. I've spoken about how amazing Taiwan is to death in my videos, and if you watch this channel, which I hope you do, then I'm pretty sure that you know my feelings about the Chinese government. It's no secret that I find them absolutely abhorrent, but I'm not making this video to talk about that topic today, believe it or not. Even though I think the number one reason not to go to China, to live there, go there as a tourist, is because of the government, I want to tell you my list of other reasons why you should not go to China for your holiday, but instead, you should go to Taiwan. But before we get into it, please remember that all opinions expressed in this video are just my opinions. I'm well aware that other people might feel totally differently, and that's perfectly fine. If you love China, then that's fine by me. Go ahead, love China, love the Chinese government, whatever, it's up to you. So it's just my opinions in this video. And just one more thing, I want to point out that most of what I say will be from my perspective as a British citizen. Some of the rules, especially for travel, might be a little bit different depending on where you're from. Now with that being said, let's get to the reasons why Taiwan is the better country to go to as a tourist than China. How does visa-exempt entry for 90 days sound? Sounds pretty good, right? On the 12th of September 2022, Taiwan reinstated visa-exempt entry for British passport holders, and a bunch of other countries can also enjoy this benefit. British visitors are permitted to spend up to 90 days in Taiwan under this scheme. At present, there's something called a 7-day self-initiated epidemic prevention period, which means that you must wear a mask for 7 days upon arrival into Taiwan. Now, you can freely travel around and you don't have to isolate at home or in a hotel or anything, so that's pretty good, and it's really come a long way since I first went to Taiwan back in 2020, and I had to quarantine in a hotel for 14 days of my life and it sucked. But thankfully, those days are long gone. Now, China, on the other hand, is a little bit different. And I guess that's because they're two different countries, right? And whoever said Taiwan is a part of China obviously didn't look at the two countries' entry rules. In order to go to China, you need to get a visa. There are so many different visas, and to be frank, the application process is a complete pain in the ass. You'll end up spending more money than you want to just to get the stupid thing in your passport. Your biometric data will also be taken by immigration authorities when you arrive into the country, and who knows what nefarious purpose they have for doing that. To think that the Chinese Communist Party has my fingerprints makes me feel sick to the stomach. You also need a negative COVID PCR test within 48 hours of entering the country, which is also costly and a pain in the rear end to organize. Do you remember when China were getting mad because a lot of countries required Chinese travelers to also have a COVID test? But they're doing exactly the same thing. Now, if you manage to jump through all of those hoops successfully, there's still always the fear that they could just arbitrarily deny your entry into the country. And that sucks. So without having to deal with a bunch of bureaucratic nonsense, COVID tests, anxiety, and the panic that comes with going to China, then Taiwan is the clear winner with this one. Good job, Taiwan. So one of the most important things when going on holiday is finding yourself a nice, clean, but affordable hotel room, right? It has to be decent, clean, and most importantly, within your budget. Nobody likes to pay too much for a hotel room or be wandering around aimlessly trying to find one, and possibly being refused to stay even when you do find one. Nobody wants that. In China, whenever you stay in a hotel, you must register with the police. Most of the time, the hotel does this for you, but in the cheaper hotels, foreigners can't stay there because the hotel staff are unable to register you with the police, which forces you to stay in one of the more expensive hotels. So you've already forked out a load of cash for your visa, the COVID test, and the flights, and now you have to stay in an expensive hotel. It probably doesn't matter because you already pre-booked the hotel before your visit, but let's just say that your plan changes last minute and you want to find a different and cheaper place to stay. Well, good luck with that. Even worse is, if you want to stay in private accommodation like an Airbnb or maybe at a friend's house, you have to personally go and register yourself with the police. This can be extremely frustrating and very time consuming, and also it can be a little bit intimidating having to sit around with the police in a foreign country like you're some sort of criminal. I remember when I once stayed in an Airbnb in Beijing, and it took me over an hour to register with the police, and man, it sucked. It was a complete downer sitting in a police station, wasting my time when I could have been exploring the city and having fun. And what's even worse is the police, they just sit there, eyeing you up like this, looking at your passport and then looking up at you constantly like this, like a yo-yo bouncing up and down. You know, you're in there for an hour filling out some stupid forms. It could take about 2 seconds, but they purposely sit you down for what seems like an eternity, and they kind of looking at you like you're some kind of criminal. It's quite weird, to be honest with you. But thankfully, it's not the same in Taiwan, obviously, and you can stay in whichever hotel you want, be it a hostel, a motel, Airbnb, at a friend's house. No matter how cheap, expensive, clean, filthy the hotel is, no hassle, no discrimination, just happy holiday time. Welcome to Taiwan. Once again, there's absolutely no doubt Taiwan is the clear winner here. Are we starting to see a little bit of a pattern here? When you go on holiday for a short period of time, it's just totally unrealistic to expect to be speaking the local language, right? Luckily, a lot of Taiwanese people working in the service industry are very proficient in the English language. Taiwan's government approved a blueprint drafted by the National Development Council to develop Taiwan into a bilingual nation by 2030. They aim to raise the level of English proficiency among the public by equipping a new generation of workers and professionals with English language skills. I've witnessed this personally in Taiwan. Even when I popped into my local 7-Eleven, the shop assistant was fluent in English. Everywhere I went, people there were speaking English to me, offering to help me. It was really quite amazing.
You're one of us. You're one of us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Now China, on the other hand, well, it's no secret that the Chinese government has closed down a lot of English language centers, which indicates to me that they don't really see the value in their citizens speaking English. Now, that's fair enough, you know. Obviously, English is just a second language. But at the end of the day, if you go on holiday to China and can't speak Mandarin, you might have a little bit of trouble. And from personal experience, I can tell you that much more people speak English in Taiwan compared to China. That is just a 100% guarantee. So in the English language race, Taiwan is light years ahead of China. If you want to see Chinese culture and history, you'll see so much more of it in Taiwan than you ever will in China. The Chinese government has done a very good job of eradicating Chinese history and culture, not only with their Great Leap Forward and Cultural Revolution, but also in recent years as well. But Taiwan is not China, and in Taiwan, much of that Chinese culture has been preserved. You'll see a lot of Japanese influence in Taiwan as well, but most importantly, you'll see all of this with a Taiwanese twist. Just the amount of functioning temples in Taiwan really blew my mind, and this is something that I hardly ever saw in China. Sure, I mean, they have temples, but they're mostly the tourist sites where they try to convince you that religion hasn't been persecuted and eradicated. But if you go off the beaten path, you'll see the reality in China. Here's an example for you of a Buddhist temple that I visited when I lived in North China. Look at how run down the place is. It's dilapidated. They haven't taken care of it at all. And they even have government slogans hanging up and Chinese flags flying above the temple. Now, if we compare this with the temples that I visited when I was in Taiwan, we can clearly see which country cares more about preserving culture and religion. Taiwan has so many religious events every year, but the one that I would definitely recommend checking out is the Dajia Mazu pilgrimage. It's simply amazing, and I'm not gonna go on and on about it in this video because I've already done a video about that on my channel, so please go and watch it if you have the time. It's really awesome. I had such a great time and it really shows in that video. I never saw anything quite like that in my time in China, and I spent a lot longer in China than I did in Taiwan. Taiwan also has a lot of well-preserved historical buildings, and sure, yeah, Beijing has a lot too, right, with the Forbidden City and blah blah blah, but do you really want to go to a place where there's a massive portrait of a genocidal madman hanging up above the entrance to that place? And just across from that place is Tiananmen Square, a site of mass murder by the same government that the genocidal madman started. Do you really want to go to a place like that? In fact, you'll see this genocidal madman wherever you go in China, as his portrait hangs up proudly in a lot of places, and there's lots of statues of him everywhere. And also, every time you pay for something, you'll see that ugly mug plastered all over the money. And also, speaking about money, you have to pay to get into most of the tourist attractions in China. Now, as far as I know, most places that I went to in Taiwan were free entry. For example, when I went to the Dragon and Tiger Pagodas in Kaohsiung, it was free to get in. But in China, I'm pretty sure they definitely would have charged me money to get in. And I probably would have ended up on one of those god-awful tour groups where the lady just screams into a microphone on the bus.
不让进，万里走上台阶，一边握着一只神兽貔貅，整个的形状是个鸟笼子。那外宾小伙子，你别照我，你就听我声儿就行了，别照我，20年前照声儿就行了，别照我人了。
and you have to wear those stupid hats. Yeah, not much fun really, is it? So in my opinion, out of the two countries, Taiwan is by far the better country to go to as a tourist. And in today's video, I've only just scratched the surface of why Taiwan is a better place to visit. And I may make a follow-up video in the future if that kind of thing interests you. We'll see how well this video does. It's kind of frustrating really when I think about it, because the Taiwanese government, they don't really do enough to promote tourism to Taiwan for international tourists, and that's kind of a shame really, because Taiwan is a hidden gem, and I think it would be great if more people could go there and see how amazing it is, and hopefully this video will encourage more people to do so. Thanks for watching today's video, and please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. It really does help. Running this YouTube channel has always been a passion project for me, and I love making videos for all of you, and I will always post on here as much as I can. With that being said, it does take a bit of effort to make these videos, and YouTube doesn't really compensate content creators the way that they should. Even if the videos get thousands of views, the money that you can earn is really low. That's why I'm asking each and every one of you if you can please consider becoming a YGZ patron. You can join for a small monthly subscription of £3 per month, and you will have access to bonus content, and you can also personally contact me. If monthly subscriptions aren't really your thing, then you can send a one-off donation through PayPal me, or you can buy me a coffee. You'll find the links to do all of this in the video's description and on my channel banner. Thank you for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video.